here's the latest from Afghanistan. The Kabul airport has been rocked by further explosions. 2 bombings earlier today, one outside Abbey Gate, Kabul's at the Hamid Karzai International Airport, one outside the Abbey Gate and another outside the nearby Beholden Hotel. That was a car bomb. And so far, the fatalities are 12 service members dead, 15 injured, and a total of, and this is still increasing, 43 fatalities. And 130 people injured. Now, U.S. officials indicated that the attack set off a firefight at Abbey Gate where our Marines apparently responded with gunfire. There were several thousand. That number fluctuates to anywhere between 2 to 5. And it was also full, the area of some Americans who were potentially seeking access to the airport. Now, that second explosion, as I said, as I was telling you, outside of the Beholden Hotel, that was apparently a car bomb. Statement from Pentagon spokesperson John Kirby said this, quote, "We can confirm that a number of U.S. servicemen were killed in today's complex attack at Kabul airport. A number of others are being treated for wounds, and we also know a number of Afghans fell victim to this heinous attack. Our thoughts and prayers go out to loved ones and teammates of all those killed," end quote. It's a shame that more thought wasn't given into making an orderly and safe exit from Afghanistan. It's not complex. You had the Taliban that set up one checkpoint, which provided a bottleneck, and then another checkpoint at the gate. So you had all of these people who were sitting ducks. And now we are, dealing with the, quite literally, this could be one of the biggest hostage crises in American history playing out before us. Thousands of Americans trapped inside of Afghanistan. With the Taliban, the official government in Kabul, we have no leverage. And we've got terrorist actors. We told you about ISIS-K or Daesh Khorasan pouring into Kabul. They've been fighting Taliban all around Afghanistan, most recently in Jalalabad. And by the way, ISIS-K is apparently even more extreme. Look, let's be clear. Every one of these terrorist factions is all part of the same dog. But ISIS-K, and it's important to understand this difference, because not understanding this difference and wallowing in ignorance is what gets people killed, and it's what contributed to 12 dead service members today. ISIS-K and Taliban are sworn enemies, and they've been fighting during killing season all over Afghanistan. In fact, some ISIS-K turned themselves into Taliban after losing most recently in Jalalabad. They think that Taliban are too moderate, and a lot of ISIS-K are made up of disaffected Taliban. So it's important to understand this so that you can what? You can anticipate, and you can plan your maneuvers, and you can respond. So, like I said, they think Taliban are kind of apostates because they don't apply the Islamic law. They're not terrorist enough. They're not dogmatic enough about it. So all this means that we have an incredibly volatile situation. We have predictably firefights. We have a suicide bombing that now, and that number might be, it is expected to, might increase. Everything is so fluid right now. And like I said, 43 confirmed so far fatalities, 130 injured. Now, these numbers are changing. The toll could rise. And it's because we dropped the stake in the dirt on this exit plan, which is to say we didn't really have an exit plan, and we still really don't. The Taliban want to position themselves as some sort of legitimate governing force, and they're condemning the bombing by blaming our troops, saying this, quote, "We strongly condemn the bombing of civilians in Kabul, which took place in an area where U.S. forces are responsible for security. Paying close attention to the security and protection of its people and evil circles will be strictly stopped." So they think that this is apparently the responsibility of the American soldiers, 12 of which just lost their lives in this whole entire process. Taliban, they're suggesting they had nothing to do with the bombing. Now, it could be. Again, all these terrorist factions are a part of the same dog. Now, if you remember, the president said the Taliban would provide for security for Americans and allies leaving the country, right? Not really working out so well. It's pretty bizarre to hear the head of CENTCOM say this kind of stuff. And as ISIS-K streams into the country, they're sworn enemies with the Taliban. Yes, the sectarian violence has already broken out. Now, meanwhile, earlier today, General Scott McMaster, and this was just a travesty of analysis, said on CNN that the bombing might have been by ISIS-K at the direction of the Taliban. And sidebar to this is Military Inc. talking here, by the way. This is the military-industrial complex trying to necessitate a situation that would demand U.S. involvement in perpetuity. But it also goes against everything that we know about ISIS-K and the Taliban, all the intel that we've developed over them since the creation of ISIS-K in 2015. They don't work together. So it really does feel like our leaders are clueless in a way. And now we have chaos, pure chaos. And again, the question has to be asked over and over. We know how it happened, but why? That's the bigger question. Why did this administration not get ahead of this exit by evacuating our people long ago? CBS Evening News asked the same question from a top U.S. diplomat who insists that everyone was warned, but wants us to somehow believe that Americans just weren't up for leaving, apparently too committed to have a summer vacay and the hellscape that is Afghanistan, which is pretty despicable. Watch.
The question has been raised, why didn't the U.S. get out Americans and our Afghani friends before the Taliban were able to take control of Kabul? You warned about this in a cable. Were you ignored?
We put out repeated warnings every 3 weeks to Americans going back to, I think, March or April. Each one in stronger terms: leave now, leave immediately. Never in my 40 years of working, since I began working at the State Department, have I seen such strong language used. People chose not to leave. That's their business. That's their right. We regret now that many may find themselves in a position that they would rather not be in, and we are determined to try to help.
So we're supposed to believe that Americans would rather stay in Afghanistan and be killed or tortured by the Taliban or ISIS-K? That makes zero sense at all whatsoever. And to somehow, they created a situation and they're blaming the people caught up in the situation that they created. And by the way, all of this is to say nothing of the thousands of loyal relationships that Afghan allies counted on, right? They helped us. In many instances, they defended and protected the lives of American soldiers. And now they've been left high and dry. Many of our allies are going to be killed horrifically. And we've sent a clear message to the world. You can help Americans, but in a moment's notice with this administration, America's going to leave you defenseless. And if you and your family are killed, so be it. Now, as I mentioned earlier, there was like a Zoom conference that they had, the Pentagon did. They finally held something, and it's clear they have no control over any of the events unfolding in Kabul, nothing. They did say, shockingly, that they're communicating and sharing information with the Taliban. This is insane. Watch this.
We share versions of this information with the Taliban so that they can actually do some searching out there for us. And we believe that some attacks have been thwarted by them. Again, we've been doing this we've been doing this since the 14th. This is an attack that's been carried out. We believe it's possible that others have been thwarted. We cut down the information we give the Taliban. They don't get the full range of information we have, but we give them enough to act in time and space to try to prevent these attacks.
You know, they were bombing us and we were bombing them just 2 weeks ago. So there you have it. The Pentagon's counting on the Taliban. Again, we were literally throwing munitions at each other 2 weeks ago to thwart attacks against us. And the Taliban are supposed to perform searches and help us prevent more suicide bombings at the airport. The same Taliban who couldn't be trusted to stop a terrorist group from using Afghanistan as a base to plot an attack on America, using planes filled with civilians, flown like missiles into the World Trade Center. So far, trusting the Taliban with our security has led to 12 dead servicemen today, hundreds injured. And this is the worst evacuation in American history. And the legacy press has done a pretty good job, most of them, holding the administration's feet to the fire. In fact, if it wasn't for some of these foreign correspondents on the ground, we wouldn't know as much as we do because we can't depend on our government to tell us. It's going to be interesting and really heart-wrenching to see where it goes from here because the administration has to be held accountable. And I just don't know how this administration continues with this. You have a president who has no faith, the people have no faith in his ability to do anything. He's plummeting in the polls. A suicide bombing now where you have 12 families who are going to get a knock on their door today. 12 families. You have the least liked vice president in American history. And we're looking at a lame duck presidency only 8 months into this term. And we are not even out of the woods yet, not by a long shot.